Joining me here today, it's the one, the only, the savage herself, Gillian Robertson, who just like a savage is stepping up, taking on JJ Aldrich. Short notice, stay ready, so you have to get ready. Jillian, how are you?
I'm doing great. Exactly like you said, always staying ready. So I'm hyped for this fight.
I mean, when you say stay ready, like I think people assume you're training, but you have to be careful food wise too, right? Because we've heard of all these fighters, they're like 30 pounds over when the fight comes. But for you, you must have been watching the weight too.
For me, it's never really an issue with the weight cut. I generally eat what I want to, and I'm walking around like 130, 133 if I'm heavy. So it's like I'm cutting 8 pounds tops, really.
Oh, yeah.
I'm never really dealing with too much of a weight cut. So it's never a question for me to take a short notice fight.
Oh, that's perfect. And I mean, we've seen it pays off, right? You get big opportunities, then before you know, you've got 3, 4 fights in a year. So it seems like timing is perfect for you.
Oh yeah, and exactly that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be able the fact that I'm not getting in there till March is already too late for me. I wanted to be in there by February. So the fact that I'm getting this matchup, it's just the beginning of the year and hopefully going to set off a streak.
But the thing too is you're coming off a big win. Like a lot of people were talking about it, especially because you choked a girl with, fingers in your eyes. So I mean, you have to come back as soon as possible to capitalize.
Oh yeah, and especially where I'm at right now in my career, just mentally and physically, I feel like I'm in the position to really just like make that title run, really, like you said, capitalize on it and get those fights and get those wins in. So I'm just trying to stay as active as possible this year.
So you are going to be taking on JJ Aldrich. Were you excited for this opponent? Like obviously she's someone, it's a big test for a lot of people to sort of figure out where they're at. Were you excited with this fight?
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of the same in that, where we're kind of the big matchup, the test for other fighters. But it's the typical striker versus grappler. We're both very well rounded. It's like she's no slouch on the ground, I'm no slouch on the feet. But typically, like she's more of a striker, I'm more of the jujitsu girl. So I feel like it plays out that way. But no matter what, I was hyped for this matchup. I feel it's one that I feel like was in the works for a while, where I always expected to get matched up against JJ. I always knew that it was going to happen eventually, and then finally the opportunity just came up.
So how does that affect your training camp? I believe you're in Las Vegas right now in an undisclosed location, but how does training camp look? Because I assume it's not really camp at this point.
Actually, honestly, this is, I guess, the full camp mode, 100%, where
Oh.
it's just my coach has flown out to Vegas with me in the next 2 weeks. I don't really have to focus on weight cuts, so we're just focusing on technique. We're focusing on just honing the skills and making sure everything's right and my game plan is right, and we're ready when we walk in and the cage door closes.
That's perfect. 'Cause I think like you hear from so many people, it's like they're like, we're not even training, we're just working on weight. They're like, it's making sure I'm down and they forget. But so for you, it's got to be good not to have to focus on that.
Oh, yeah, and that's my point in not cutting weight in general. Like, I get a whole extra week to focus on the fight that my opponent usually doesn't get. They're usually too focused on getting down on weight. I know JJ is a little bit smaller, so she's probably not too worried about her weight cut either. But it's definitely a benefit for me.
So with you being in Vegas, what was the thought process behind that? Was that just so you can get acclimated? Was it a certain training thing? Like what was your reason for coming out early?
Initially, I was supposed to corner Hannah Goldie this last weekend,
Oh, yeah.
before she got the flu and had to pull out of her fight. So I was just coming out here for her initially. My coach has to be out. My coach, Dean Thomas, he commentates for the UFC as well. So he's going to be commentating on the Masvidal and Covington card this weekend as well. So it's like I wanted to be with my coach, make sure I had as much time with him as possible. So it just seemed ideal to stay out here for the extra week and just wait until the fight.
You mentioned he's commenting on the broadcast. Like we're seeing Dean a lot more, and he's doing good. I mean, we've always seen him on looking for a fight and stuff, but now we're seeing him, and he's really good on the pay per view. Like he has such a great way of breaking stuff down.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to hear him out there, and it's like uh, it's the stuff that I get to hear every day,
Yeah.
essentially. But I like to be able to hear him break down fights, and just he has a different eye for thing, a different mindset on how to see things.
And the thing for him too is that he knows Jorge and Colby very well. I assume you do too. Like how familiar are you with both men? 'Cause you did train at the gym for a long time.
I am not too familiar with either one. I've had more conversations with Jorge than I have Colby. I've never talked to Colby ever. Um, just yeah, I guess I'm not too familiar. I'm generally the socially awkward person in the back of the room. I'm not the one that's going out and making friends with everybody in the gym. So I wasn't too friendly with either.
But that would have been like a high pressure situation, right? Colby's obviously doing his thing. Jorge's become larger than life. Like for you to insert yourself in that, like that's a big storyline they have going.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I try to stay out of a lot of that stuff. I'm like, it's a lot of drama, and that's not necessarily me.
For sure. Let's talk about your last fight a little bit. Obviously, you mentioned the throat cuddle. Obviously, successful throat cuddle. What's going through your mind? You're locking in the submission. The thumbs go in the eye. Do you realize exactly what's going on?
Oh, yeah, I 100% am realizing what's happening. I felt her thumb in my eye, and I knew like I just had to keep on squeezing and squeezing. My only thought during that moment is like, ref, like, do you not see this? Because I could see the ref standing there. I knew he was like right over, and I'm like, do you not see that shit? This is happening? Because I could feel like at least the knuckle deep in my eye.
Oof. Were you scared your eye was gonna pop out in the broadcast? Like you get the choke, the eye comes flying out. I mean, you would have went viral, maybe not for the right reasons.
I guess that's not really a thought in the moment. Really, honestly, all I was thinking about was getting my choke. So it's like I just thinking about squeezing tighter, and just waiting for the tap. I knew that I would be able to last longer than she could in that moment.
And I know on the broadcast, like Joe Rogan had your back. Like he was out there, like, "Oh, she's so dirty. She's got the thumb in your eye." Were you surprised Joe Rogan, of all people, was the one that was mentioning what was happening? Because sometimes people just ignore it, and we don't realize like you've got people trying to scoop out your eye.
I guess for me that that was my complaint, was that it was so much about the eye. I felt
Yeah.
like everybody, like Joe Rogan, the media, everything, it blew up. It went viral about her poking my eye. But I'm like, it didn't go viral about the slick choke that I hit right before it happened. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, I wish that I got a little bit more positive recognition from that than she got so much negative recognition. And I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
all the spotlight was on her for poking me in the eye instead of me for winning.
I think I took it different because I thought a lot of people, their thing was kind of like, look, she was able to choke her while, she's trying to scoop out her eye. Like, I felt like it was kind of like, look how savage Jillian is, making sure she's locking on the choke despite all the crap that's going on.
I feel like so many people just went to the negative route of,
Yeah.
oh, Priscilla has to be cut, like, and just going off about that. And I'm like, like, obviously it is an illegal move, whatever, but people are too much about that.
And I mean, she came back, I think last weekend, right? She had that banger of a fight. And that was kind of like, people were like, okay, don't cut her anymore. Like, you want us back over.
I got tagged in a couple comments on that too. Apparently, I don't know. I didn't watch it, the fight. Apparently, a lot of people didn't think the decision
Yeah.
necessarily went in the right way, and yeah. So I got a lot of texts, a lot of comments about that fight.
Did you get a like when there's a viral moment, right? Like we mentioned the eye poke. Did you have like TMZ and all these crazy like non MMA things hitting you up, asking you to come on? Like, did you get a lot of requests like that?
Not necessarily. I saw definitely a lot of news articles out there, but I don't think I'm necessarily a name yet. You know, I'm not famous yet. We're still just flying under the radar a little bit. I'm not quite the star yet.
But let's talk about that fight a little bit. Obviously, like we saw you seem comfortable on the feet. Striking's obviously evolving, but as soon as we get on the ground, we all know what Jillian's going for. Were you like happy with your performance?
Um, I guess you can always be better. I definitely made a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of things that I could really have capitalized on, been more patient with, and just made smarter decisions. So I'm never happy walking out of the cage. There's few fights where I feel like I performed to my best of my ability at that time, and I wouldn't say that this is necessarily one of them. I feel like I could have done. I I don't know. It may be bordering on the line where I feel like I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I'm not. This isn't one I'm gonna show my friends. You know.
So, out of curiosity, which ones have you shown your friends? Like, have you had the ones where you're like, let's put it on the big screen, everybody shut up and watch me go to work?
Uh, the two fights where I feel like I performed to the best of my ability at that time, I feel like I'm a better fighter now, so that's why I say at that time,
Right, right.
was against Molly McCann and against Sarah Froda whenever I got a TKO'd her. I'm like, both those times, I just feel like my decision making was on point in those fights, and I was able to capitalize on that, and it obviously showed in the fights.
Are you and Molly friends since that? Did I see that right? Like, are you guys hanging out and stuff? Are you actually friends?
Oh yeah, obviously she's across the pond,
Right,
so I
right,
can't
yeah,
really
yeah.
see her too much. But when I fought, I was supposed to fight Miranda Maverick last year, and I ended up getting food poisoning the day of the fight. But that fight, Molly McCann was actually supposed to corner me. So I'm like, that was a missed opportunity, but that would have been awesome. Molly and I are. I feel like I'm closer with girls that I fought than I am with girls that I haven't. So I'm like, Molly and I are real close friends now. Hannah Goldie and I, where she was my first pro fight ever, and now she's probably my best friend. So I'm like, I've gained a lot of cool relationships out of it.
Speaking of that, I believe Hannah, she's training with you guys, with Dean Thomas at the gym in Florida, right? I believe she was part of the team. How's the team kind of coming together? Because I believe at one point it was you and Shorty Torres, I believe, in a garage. Like I have to assume a few years later now, it's starting to grow a little bit.
Oh well, the goal isn't necessarily to grow. It's more just to grow as fighters ourselves. So it's still just kind of a small group. That's the I guess the plan of it is to keep it a small group, so then Dean can just focus on us. He can just focus on the fighters that he wants to focus on, and really, obviously, he's so spread thin, commentating, doing whatever, and so it's just really to build us as fighters and make sure that we're able to capitalize on our careers.
I assume you must be happy staying at least in Florida or in warmer places. 'Cause I know at one point you like followed him to Milwaukee in the middle of winter and stuff. I know you're Canadian, but still, like there must be a few places where it's like at least it's nice you could stay in Florida or somewhere nice like Vegas.
Oh yeah, I definitely have Florida blood. Even coming to Vegas right now, it's like 50 degrees outside, and I'm like, what is this? You guys
Yeah.
didn't turn the heating back on yet?
So going into this fight with JJ, how important is this for your career? Obviously, 2 wins in a row. You have to capitalize from the last one. Are you feeling any sort of pressure heading into this one?
I feel like this year, especially all the fights I take this year are very important for my career. It's going to show the direct trajectory that I'm going to take, and I feel like I am ready to make a title run, and if it'll prove it if I can win these fights, if I can show it. It's like I don't want to talk about it, I want to do it.
There was someone that mentioned that a lot of the women at flyweight they're so focused on Valentina they forget like there's other people in the division. Obviously, you're in the division. Do you feel that way? You feel like people are almost too focused on Valentina? Like, what's kind of the deal with that?
Yes and no. Obviously, she's the champ for a reason. She's the kind of like the gold standard that you got to reach. So I don't think it's wrong to be too focused on her. She is light years ahead of a lot of flyweights at the moment. So I feel like that's the goal. That's where you got to catch up to or beat. So I don't feel like there is anything wrong with looking at that.
Well, one thing I'm curious about with your style, obviously, it's very ground game oriented. Have you thought about taking a style like a Habib or Islam Makhachev, who we just saw, where you kind of put people against the cage, maul them all until they give the submission? Have you thought about having that sort of game plan?
I guess everybody's style is different for what they have. Mine, I guess, uh, theirs is more like forcing people into making decisions, and mine's letting them make their own decisions and letting them fuck themselves, kind of. Uh, I guess, yeah, everybody just has a different approach to how they take it. And I guess it might be different too, but between each like opponent that I have.
So getting back to this fight with JJ, how are you sort of looking at this matchup? You mentioned a little bit grappler versus striker. Obviously, we know you're the striker in the matchup. I mean, how are you sort of looking at this matchup?
um, everybody knows where I'm trying to get the
Yeah.
fight, what I want to do. So I feel like it's going to be a dirty fight if I got to win it. We're not going to be fighting on the outside. We're going to be throwing a lot of elbows, a lot of knees in the clinch, wrestling, and again, my takedowns. She's no scrub, and she's not going to give up easy. So it's like I'm going to really have to wear her down, make her not want to be in there, and then I'll be able to get my submission. But I know that it's not going to be a light fight.
All right, one last question for you. I know I always ask it. The answer is always the same, but I guess you never know. Maybe one day it's a one punch knockout. But how do you see this fight playing out against JJ Aldrich?
We going for throat cuddles.
All right, fair enough. Oh, we knew how it was gonna end. Like if you were like, oh, overhand right, but what are you talking about? But yeah,
Overhand right to throat
yeah,
cuddle.
fair enough. All right, well, thank you so much for the time, Jillian. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to this fight. It's gonna be a very good one.
Oh, no problem. It was a pleasure talking to you.